human trafficking, elite exploitation, and the hidden agenda behind immigration policies. When people hear human trafficking, they often picture young women forced into sex slavery. Yes, that's a crucial part of the problem, but it's not the whole story. Beneath the headlines, powerful elites in politics and business are profiting from a system that treats immigrants like disposable commodities. The Riley Laken Act, for example, is promoted as an anti-trafficking law, yet it effectively funnels vulnerable immigrants into privatized detention centers, places notorious for abuse, forced labor, and devastating human rights violations. Worse still, many of these same elites claim we have no choice but to cut benefits like Social Security because of a budget crisis. But the truth is far different. Amnesty for undocumented workers could solve multiple issues at once, strengthening Social Security, filling gaps in our labor force, and adding a projected $1.5 trillion to the U.S. economy over the next 10 years. By contrast, mass detention and deportation is estimated to cost taxpayers $850 billion in the same time frame. So why are we being told the opposite? Let's expose the real agenda and see how the cycle of hatred is costing us billions, while the path of compassion could yield trillions. 1. The Riley Laken Act, a solution that makes things worse criminalizing immigrants. While supporters say it prevents trafficking, this law indiscriminately criminalizes immigrants, funneling them into for-profit detention centers. Child rape and sexual abuse. Numerous reports detail horrific abuse inside these facilities, including child rape. Privatized centers rake in money by filling beds, not by providing safety. Collective punishment. Imagine punishing every blonde, blue-eyed person for the crimes of one individual. That's essentially what these policies do to immigrants, violating the U.S. Constitution's promise of individual justice. A human rights crisis in the making under these conditions. Victims of trafficking aren't protected. They're often re-traumatized, stuck in a revolving door of detention and possible deportation. 2. A rigged system. Profits over people who benefits from treating immigrants as criminals. Private detention companies. Every detained immigrant is a paycheck. With hedge funds and shareholders to appease, detention centers cut corners on safety and care. Politicians. By championing tough on immigration stances, they exploit fear, distract from real economic issues, and gain political capital. Exploitative employers. With immigrants terrified of deportation, they can pay meager wages in deplorable conditions, modern-day slavery in disguise. These groups hide behind the rhetoric of stopping trafficking or securing borders. In reality, they've built an empire on human suffering. 3. The economic farce. Hate versus hope hate has a price tag $850 billion. The estimated cost of mass detention and deportation over a decade. Money that could have funded schools, infrastructure, or health care is instead poured into a cruel system that terrorizes families and criminalizes workers. Hope has a dividend $1. $5 trillion. What experts project the U.S. would gain by granting amnesty to millions of undocumented immigrants. Beyond the moral victory, imagine the boost to Social Security and local economies when workers can fully participate without fear. Fixing Social Security, we're told we must slash benefits because we have an aging population and a shrinking labor force. Yet, granting legal status to immigrants would expand the workforce, meaning more people paying into Social Security. That's a direct way to strengthen the safety net for seniors. No painful cuts required. 4. Weaponizing faith. Hypocrisy in high places many who push anti-immigrant policies claim to do so with God on their side. But let's remember what most holy texts teach about strangers in need. When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. Leviticus 19 verse 33, locking children in detention centers, forcing people into labor for cents on the dollar, and splitting families cannot be squared with genuine faith-based compassion. It's a moral contradiction that calls into question the integrity of leaders who profit from human misery while invoking God's name. 5. Who's fueling the misinformation and why? Political distraction. Pointing fingers at immigrants distracts us from structural problems like wage stagnation, corporate tax breaks, and a rigged economic system. Fear and division. Stirring xenophobia pits American-born workers against immigrant laborers. Both end up losing while big corporations pocket bigger profits. Maintaining the status quo. As long as the public is angry at immigrants, we're not demanding accountability or pushing for the reforms that would challenge elite power structures. 6. What would God do? Embrace solutions that honor life, faith, compassion, and common sense suggest a different path. Amnesty and workforce expansion. Let immigrants step out of the shadows, fully join the tax base, and fill labor shortages, especially vital for Social Security funding and sustaining industries that rely on young workers. Close for-profit detention centers. A just system should protect public safety without profiting from the incarceration of innocent children and adults. Demand accountability. Push leaders to investigate and shut down centers where sexual abuse and forced labor thrive, and hold corporations responsible for exploiting detainees. Stop collective punishment. Resist laws that condemn entire communities because of the actions of a few. This violates fundamental constitutional rights and undermines the ideals of individual justice. 7. Choose love. Not lies, hatred, and division cost us $850 billion, tears families apart, and do nothing to genuinely combat human trafficking. Love, embodied by humane immigration policies, amnesty, and worker protections, could strengthen Social Security, pump $1.5 trillion into our economy, and uphold the moral high ground. Every step we take either amplifies misery and profit for the few, or builds a future that benefits the many. It's time to stop letting fear and misinformation dictate how we treat our immigrant brothers and sisters. Final word: America stands at a crossroads. Continue throwing billions at a broken, abusive system, or harness the trillion-dollar potential of amnesty and a fair pathway to citizenship. When leaders claim we have no choice but to slash benefits for seniors or criminalize entire communities, ask yourself, what would God do? The answer is clear. America's greatest strength has always been its open arms and innovative spirit. Embracing that legacy is not just good policy, it's the right thing to do.